I'm Dave Ellison, and a long time ago I met a hamster. We got on quite well together, and we decided we'd go into business together. We became partners in a children's television series which was called Tales of the Riverbank. I was born and bred in the middle of London, and the only animals that I had ever seen were dogs and cats. And it was only when I was sent away to boarding school that my mother put me on a train at Charing Cross, and I saw the countryside really for the first time. And in the countryside there were these enormous creatures: cows, sheep, horses. I'd never seen these things before. So I can't say that I've had really close attachments to animals, but I find that I do get on with animals, and I found that I was able to get on with these little creatures: hamsters, white rats, guinea pigs. I started in television way back in the days of Alexandra Palace, and I worked with people like Frida Lindstrom, who was head of children's television program at the time, and she introduced programs like Muffin the Mule and the Flower Pot Men, programs like that. Then in 1954 I got a job in Canada with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation as a film editor. It was during this time that I met a French producer who had come over to Canada to make a children's series called Les Fables de Fontaine, which is the French version of Aesop's Fables. In this program he used live animals. Unfortunately, the animals he chose to use were rather large. He had animals like pigs, goats, pigeons, and even a spider monkey. And this spider monkey, after one day's shooting, he decided he had enough, and he climbed up into the grid of the studio and he stayed there for 2 weeks. We couldn't get him down. The series was not a success. Unfortunately, Mark Goudart was not a very good film director, and none of the shots that he shot would cut together, so when it came to the time for me to edit it, I couldn't make sense of the items that he had shot. So the outcome was that in fact I took over the direction of the series and became a film director by accident. The series was a disaster, but it gave me an idea of using small animals which were easy to handle, and that's why my friend the hamster comes on the scene. By this time I had gone into business with Paul Sutherland, and I was running a company called Film Editorial Services, which specialised in editing films for freelance producers. We mainly did editing for documentaries, but some of them were children's films. Paul and I decided to make a pilot based on a story I had made up for his son, his young son. I used to tell him bedtime stories, and one of the stories was the first day of spring, and that became our pilot. We rented a garage belonging to a friend of ours, and we started filming the pilot in this garage. This was midwinter, and temperatures were going down to something like -20, -30. And the lights in the garage, which we had to use the sets, were melting the snow, piling up outside the garage door. Consequently, we had a flood of water coming in, seeping in underneath the garage doors, and we shot the entire pilot paddling around in 2 inches of water. However, we finished the pilot, and I took it to the CBC, knowing full well that they would be delighted to buy the programme. Didn't quite turn out that way. They watched my pilot film and they said, well, unfortunately, it's very good, but it's not suitable for children, so thank you very much. Well, that was that. Now, I had spent a long time, as I say, at BBC, so within a day or two I was on a plane back to London, and I presented myself to Owen Reed, head of children's television, and his production head Ursula Eason, and I showed them the pilot. the result was that they ordered 39 episodes, which was pretty good. I returned to Toronto with the contract in my hand, and we produced the series. It took us, I think, 2 years to make the 39 episodes. The series was a great success. Within weeks of it going on air in London at the BBC, we had got orders from Australia, New Zealand, and even China. We exhibited at the Moscow Film Festival and won first prize. We exhibited at the Canadian Film Festival and we won first prize there. It just so happened that at that time, the second commercial channel in Canada had started up, CTV, and regardless of what the CBC had said that it wasn't suitable for children, CTV were rather pleased with it, and they contracted with us. So within a very short time we had worldwide distribution. After making 39 episodes, my partner Paul and I decided we would have a rest from animals and children's programs, and I returned to London and I got a contract with the Central Office of Information to make documentary films boosting the products of the United Kingdom, which I thoroughly enjoyed. We did everything from going down to the depths in nuclear submarines to climbing Nelson's Column. I also did a series of programs on hovercraft, and actually ended up going up the River Amazon in an SRN-6, which I found rather intriguing. We also crossed the Sahara Desert in SRN-6. I think it was an SRN-6, maybe an SRN-5, I'm not sure, forget. So I spent the next 6 years making some very interesting programs. I was then approached by the BBC to see if I would be interested in making a series of animal programs, again for the very young. And I ended up producing a series of 26 episodes of a children's nature series called Along the Trail. This was showing animals of the world to very young children for the very first time, so that they knew what a lion looked like and how big a lion was in relation to their cat that they had sitting on the carpet in front of them, and mountain lions, buffaloes, grizzly bears. Had some very interesting experiences with bears in Canada. One of them was with a family of grizzlies. We had contacted the rangers up in the Rockies to find out where there was a likely site of filming grizzly, and they told us to go to a certain salt lick near the Athabasca Glacier, which is what we did. We camped out there for about 2 or 3 days, and eventually we heard some very strange noises coming from out of the bush, and suddenly this enormous head appeared through a piece of shrubbery. It was a grizzly bear. Fortunately, we had got all our equipment ready and we were able to film this. And after a few moments, this head disappeared back into the bush, and 3 little cubs. When I say little cubs, grizzly bears are rather large animals. When they stand up, a full-size grizzly will be about as high as a door, probably 7, 8, 9 foot in height. Big animal. And so these baby cubs were the size of perhaps an Alsatian dog, only very much fuller. And they appeared from behind this hedge, and they walked down the slope of a little cliff that was in front of us. We were getting some beautiful shots. And the mother took the cubs down to a salt lick, which they have to have salt once or twice a week. And whilst they were licking these rocks and getting the salt, I was clicking away with my camera, and the mother bear was rather upset about this, and she decided that she'd better come and investigate. And she did. She turned round distance of about, I don't know, 40 feet, which is where they were licking the salt, she lumbered towards me until she was about 6 or 7 feet away. This enormous animal coming to you at speed, to as close as that, was not exactly what I had in mind. However, I was able to get some very good shots of this. My finger was clicking away on my camera more out of terror than anything else. But we had been told by the rangers that under no circumstances should we move, especially to try and run away. So we were stuck rigidly to the position, and we didn't move. The animal, the bear, couldn't work this out quite. Bears have not got very good eyesight, they've got very good hearing and very good smell, but if something doesn't move, they have difficulty in seeing it. So our instructions not to move were good, and we didn't move, and the bear stopped. Went down on all fours, gave a snort, turned round, went back to its cubs and said, "Come on, there's something fishy here, we're going home," and they lumbered off. Fortunately, our motion picture camera was sort of running all the time, and we were able to film all this. After we filmed this nature series for the BBC, I was approached by Working Title Films to produce another series of Tales of the Riverbank. They wanted shorter versions this time. The original versions had been 15 minutes. Working Title were interested in a series of 5-minute programmes, so that's exactly what we did. We produced 26 5-minute episodes, and we titled the programme Further Tales of the Riverbank. It was picked up by Channel 4 and it played for several years over Channel 4. During all this time, we had had several books published by various publishers, Oddham's and Polystyle. They produced books for us. Scholastic, they produced a series of books for us. And we had comic strips running, and of course videos. BBC Enterprises put out a series of videos which took number 2 spot in the popularity charts, and it stayed there for 16 weeks, which was pretty good. As I said, we started the series with Hammy, the hamster. I had bought the original hamster at a department store in Toronto called Eaton's, in their pet department, and I soon found that it was a very tractable animal. They were very photogenic animals, and they were easy to keep, but they had one disadvantage in that they were nocturnal animals, and they didn't like working during the day. They would run around in their wheels in their cage all night long, but when it came to working on the set during daytime, all they wanted to do was curl up and go to sleep. So we had to have not just one Hammy hamster, but we had, I suppose, at any one time, we had 6, maybe 7 or 8 hamsters, and we would have them on set for perhaps 5 or 10 minutes, and they would curl up and go to sleep. So we'd have to pick him up, put him back in the cage, and bring out hamster number 2. The same applied to Roderick the white rat. He didn't like working on set for very long. He was quite happy, but he got bored after about 10 minutes again. He would just not do anything. But not doing anything actually wasn't all that bad, because when you watch each sequence, it isn't the animal that's doing anything, but it's the prop that the animal is working with that is doing the movement. Roderick Rat has his motor yacht, so he moves around up and down the river in his very posh motor yacht. Hammy Hamster, well, he gets involved with his friends, particularly Mr. Guinea Pig. Mr. Guinea Pig is a mad professor, really. He invented the hovercraft. Quite by accident, he was in fact trying to invent the vacuum cleaner, but he got the plug the wrong way round, and it turned into a hovercraft. Although the series is called Tales of the Riverbank, the animals never actually got anywhere near the river. It was all shot in the studio. The riverbank was set about 40 foot long, tabletop height, and it was about 6 foot deep, I suppose. The set was 6 foot deep. The water itself was about 2 inches deep. The first episodes, as I say, were shot in Toronto in Canada, but the main bulk of the series was shot on the Isle of Wight. I chose the Isle of Wight because I had been filming a documentary with British Hovercraft Corporation, and I had noticed that the Isle of Wight had the necessary countryside for location shots. It had very good weather, and it had some very reasonably priced accommodation that I could use as a studio. Animals are not necessarily trained actors, and you can't really make a hamster learn how to act, or a guinea pig to learn how to act. So what our stories did to make it appear as though they were acting was we used lots of props that moved, and by putting the animals on these props and moving the props, it appeared as though the animals were doing what we wanted them to do. For instance, Roderick Rat was a very famous yachtsman on the riverbank, and he had a very smart motor yacht. Well, you put Roderick Rat on this boat and you move the boat along the river. He's not going to jump in the water, he's going to stay in the boat, and he's going to look very much as though he is in control of the boat and steering it along the riverbank. In actual fact, the boat is attached to a stick an inch underneath the water, and I've got the other end of the stick and I'm pulling it along. The same applies to Guinea Pig in his Jeep. The guinea pig travels all along the riverbank at great speed, but he's doing it not by running along under direction of, right now guinea pig, run left or run right, but we put guinea pig in the Jeep's seat and we move the Jeep, so you know he goes where we want him to go. Hammy, well, the same applies to him. If we want Hammy to appear to be travelling from one end of the river to the other, then we either put him in Mr. Guinea Pig's balloon or Mr. Guinea Pig's aeroplane or Mr. Roderick Rat's motorboat, or if we want him to go down and talk to the fish, we put him into Guinea Pig's diving bell and down he goes. So the actors are not actually doing anything. Can't say that they ever became attached to any particular hamster, but I appreciate rats. Rats are highly intelligent creatures. Unfortunately, they have a nasty reputation, the sewer rats, and the problems that one had with them in the past. But the pet rats are pretty clean and can be very friendly. They do get attached to you. Not in the way that dogs do, but they're handleable. Hamsters are also very handleable. They can also bite. In fact, we were the only producers I know of that had to be inoculated against their caste. I must say that my career in television and in film has been very, very interesting indeed. I wouldn't have had it any other way. I have been able to do things in my documentary capacity that most people would give their right arm to do. And I have had very enjoyable experiences making children's programs and some very enjoyable encounters with my audience, the children. I filmed, as I say, documentaries. I also did filming in the first Iraqi war, but I don't want to talk about that particularly. I suppose I retired. Yeah, in fact, I want to talk about retirement.